Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Main, I wanted to thank you for being here today to discuss cosmetics reform and the need to modernize FDA's authorities. As you know, the agency was first given authority over cosmetics in 1938, and the industry has grown dramatically since then. Your testimony outlines several gaps in FDA's authorities, many of which I believe I've worked to address in the legislation that I brought forth yesterday. And I wanted to focus on one area that continues to concern me, and that's imported cosmetics. In the past decade, the volume of imported cosmetics has increased from more than 1 million lines to nearly 3 million per year. For example, you note in your testimony there were 2.7 million import lines in fiscal year 2018, yet FDA has shared with me that the agency physically examined only 5,564 of them. That's less than 1%. And of those inspected and sampled, almost 23% had adverse findings, including illegal color additives and microbial contamination. So my question is, the cosmetic program is one of the smallest programs at the agency. Recognizing that this program is not going to have the financial or staff resources to physically examine every import line, nor to inspect every farm facility, I included a requirement that importers verify that the cosmetic product or cosmetic ingredient that they're bringing into the U.S. is safe and has been made in compliance with good manufacturing practices. But do you believe that this type of requirement would help the agency to ensure the safety of imported cosmetics? And if so, would you explain further why you believe that is the case?
So we have some experience with this type of requirement through the FSMA legislation that we received and the Foreign Supplier Verification Program. And what we found it is very useful in order to make sure that the importer, the person who's importing those products, is responsible for assuring that those products have been made according to the same good manufacturing practices that we have in the United States. So it helps to assure parity between domestic and foreign importers. And we would envision a similar type of program in the cosmetic setting, where an importer would be responsible for making sure that finished cosmetics products that came into the U.S. were manufactured under the same types of conditions that domestic manufacturers would be held to.
I was going to ask about the foods program, but you're saying that you like what the foods program currently has as a similar requirement. That's the FSMA.
FSV program requirement under FSMA has been very helpful to add
well, then
to
my
the
question
tools
would be, would you not just use it for finished products, but also maybe for ingredients and things before the finished product?
So we feel that if there is a GMP, a good manufacturing practice, part of the legislation as well, that those ingredients would not necessarily have to go through an FSVP type process. Rather, under the GMPs used by domestic manufacturers, they could make sure that those ingredients are safe and meet the standards. So you would not need to do that for the ingredients as long as you have a GMP provision as part of the bill.
So do you think that is there anything else that you would have a structure as a requirement for cosmetics industry based on what we learned in the food space?
I think we have learned a lot in the food space, and we would certainly be happy to provide any additional technical assistance from some of the new authorities that we've had in the food space. One in particular I can comment on is mandatory recall authority. That was a new authority that came into us as part of the FSMA regulations, and we have found it very useful. And while we have not had to invoke it very often, because we simply, folks know that we have the authority and it encourages people to do the recall voluntarily, which is the quickest way to get a product off the market, it's appropriate, and we have had to invoke it occasionally when we have requested voluntary recall in the food space for an unsafe product and the manufacturer has refused to do it. We have invoked mandatory recall.
All right, well, I appreciate your willingness to continue to work with us on that, and I would definitely like you to do so. And it's sort of interesting, too, because I started out today talking about how, years ago with Congressman John Dingell and Waxman, we had this all in one bill that covered food, cosmetics, drugs, and everything. And, of course, we separated them out. But there is, in many ways we can use the lessons from those other things. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.